What's up guys, it's Tealus here. Welcome back to the absolute final video in this class overview series looking at all of the changes coming to all of the specializations in World of Warcraft Legion. We have gone through the first video of Blood Death Knights, taking a look at what changes are coming to them in Legion in terms of their abilities and their artifact weapon. And this second video will be looking at their PvE and PvP talents and how they have changed coming into Legion. Well, the PvP talents being brand new, and then the PvE talents, of course, being changed quite significantly. There are only about one or two returning PvE talents. Otherwise, most of your entire talent tree as a Blood Death Knight is completely brand new. And so we're going to go through both talent trees, and then that will be the absolute final video for this class overview series. If you have not seen a spec that you want, it's already out by now. I have gone through all 36 specs by the time this video releases. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and start looking at the talent tree for a Blood Death Knight. In this 56 tier, which is our first tier, we have the return of Bloodworms. Bloodworms were with Blood DKs for a while in their original talent tree, and then they kind of went away over time. Your auto attack critical strikes have a chance to summon a Bloodworm. Bloodworms deal minor damage to your target for 15 seconds, and then burst, healing you for 5% of your missing health. So good old Bloodworms are back. You can see mine down there. He's just chewing away, and then after a while he will just explode and heal me for any missing health that I have left. As you can see right there, I got the little explosion and the heal. The second option here is Heartbreaker. Heartstrike is back if you missed the first video. So Heartstrike generates 3 additional runic power per hit. So Heartstrike generates 5. This wording is so strange. It's really strange. So it says in the tooltip that it generates 5 bonus runic power. Well, it never describes in the tooltip how much runic power it actually generates. To my knowledge, a Blood Death Knight will generate 10 runic power with 1 strike of a Heart Strike. It will get the bonus 5 extra runic power, which I don't know where it comes from. And then with this talent, we'll give you an extra 2 others per additional enemy struck. Now, it will hit 2 targets in a very small radius if you attack it just by itself. As you can see there, I was able to hit 2 targets, so I was able to get up to 19 runic power out of that strike. However, if I have Death and Decay down, I will be able to hit more targets than just 2. So my runic power generation with this ability, Heartbreaker, yes, I was thinking Heartseeker for a second, will be able to generate a lot of runic power very quickly, which is really needed for your death strikes. Your third option here is an ability called Blood Drinker. Drains 377 health from the target over 3 seconds. You can move, dodge, parry, and use defensive ability while channeling this. So we'll go ahead and pop this, and then we're going to kind of show what this looks like here. As you can see, I just kind of have this stream of blood that I'm getting from the enemy. Basically, I have it's like my own drain life as a blood DK. It's kind of cool. It plays into that siphoning of health off of targets, which is kind of the blood DK play style. Basically, life leech, sucking the life out of your enemies, and at the same time also be able to create a lot of magical shields. That is a blood DK's theme. Moving into the 57 tier, we have Rapid. I don't know where I came up with that. Rapid Decomposition. Your Death and Decay deals damage 50% more often, and while in your Death and Decay, you generate 20% more runic power. So if you have Heartbreaker and Rapid Decomposition up, you're going to be able to do a lot more runic power generation inside this kind of bubble here. It's gonna, I don't know exactly how much it'll be per hit. Let's knock it down as far as we can go. We're at 18 runic power right here. I'm going to put down another Death and Decay. So Death and Decay, we're now at 28. I'm going to use 1 hit right here. Hopefully I can hit all 3 targets with this. And I believe I did, and so we went from what I believe was 18 up to 54 I may have gotten the math wrong on that. Let's try it one more time. We are at 64. I will use my Heart Strike, 54 up to 89. So that is a 50, that is a 35 increase, if I did my math right. Hopefully I did my math right. Sorry, it was 64. I keep forgetting what my actual starting number was. So let me just burn it all the way down. And from there, we'll be able to kind of get an idea of where it is. Okay, I'll let it burn down, and then we'll see just how much we're able to get out of it. The only problem is that Death and Decay is going to generate off of it. So we'll just go ahead and do this. 19, remember that 19, 19, 19, 19, and then right there, 19 up to 41. So we were able to get 21, 22 out of that one strike. So there's a lot of runic power generation that you can do between these two because of the 20% additional runic power generation and the fact that you can get 3 additional runic power per target hit. Now I do realize that it has it's a little bit different here in terms of how much it generates. Let's see if we can get just one single target so we can see just how much we're generating off of one target here. So we are at 7. Let's bring it all the way down to 0, and we're going to use a Heart Strike here with Heartbreaker and see just how much we're generating. So with that, right there, one hit, 18 is how much we're generating. So you get the bonus 5 out of nowhere, and then the extra 3 from Heartbreaker per target hit. And then that increases even more so when you're able to hit more targets via the Death and Decay and Heart Strike being able to hit additional targets. So there's a lot going on there. The tooltip for Heart Strike is terrible. It was not there. If you can see, it shows up on there that you get 2 per additional enemy struck, but that doesn't line up with what the actual passive talent says, so it's kind of a mix-up there. But from what I've seen right now, on the main target, on the absolute main target, you are going to generate 18 off of Heartbreaker. Rapid decomposition will change that, but for this you're going to generate 18. If I come up here and I attack this, and I'm able to hit both these targets right there, I was able to generate 21 because I was able to hit 2 targets. So Heartbreaker's tooltip is correct. The tooltip that is added with Heart Strike is incorrect, so just ignore that 2 runic power per additional enemy struck. That is incorrect. It is just go by the Heartbreaker tooltip. So that was a huge detour trying to figure out the tooltips there. I'm sorry for that. In the second option here, we have Soul Gorge. Consume your blood plagues within 30 yards, dealing 37,000 shadow damage to each infected enemy and empowering you for 24 seconds with up to 15% rune regeneration per plague. Plagues closer to the expiration grant more rune regeneration. Blood Boil no longer applies Blood Plague. To my knowledge, I did not know that Blood Boil would apply Blood Plague. We'll use it right here, and it does not apply it. So there may be a lot of really bad tooltips in here. Let's go ahead and actually apply Blood Plague, and then see if Blood Boil will spread it. It does not. So, I don't know what to make of this, other than the fact that the passive there does not apply at all, because your Blood Boil does not spread your blood plague at all. So we're missing some really bad tooltips in here. I'm really sorry. I'm going to continue to work it out as we go through this so I can get you the correct info as it is in game, and then if it changes from here on out, you'll likely see bug fixes in the actual game. But do take note that we're really close to the launch of the actual pre-patch for Legion, so things are getting set in stone. So let me demonstrate Soul Gorge right here. I have it in the bottom right here, so I'm just going to use all 6 of my runes and literally just put Plague on everyone, on 6 different targets. So there's 3 there. I'm going to put another 3 here on 3 different targets. There we go, we have it on all. And now we will consume them. As you can see, I kind of draw them all in. I have 25 percent rune generation at the moment, so I can attack these, I can burn the runes as quickly as possible, and as you can see, my runes are coming back faster than I'm able to consume them. In fact, it's coming up almost exactly as fast as I'm able to decrease them in terms of actual, they're able to come up by the time I'm able to use, if I'm only consuming one rune per global cooldown, the runes are coming up just as quickly if I have a full 25% on there. So, spread your diseases out, and if you consume them, you can have an insane rune regeneration rate from Soul Gorge. Or, your third option is Spectral Deflection. Attacks that deal 25% of your maximum health, attacks that deal more than 25% of your maximum health will consume a second bone charge to further reduce the damage. So this is something that's going to be PvE related, because there are almost no attacks in PvP that will take 25% of your health as a blood DK. Other specs maybe, but not as a blood DK. So this will never be used as a blood DK in PvP. However, this could be useful in heavy hitter fights in PvE, like just as an example, a patchwork fight. I know that's going way back in time, but something that will hit really hard. This is an idea of what you can expect in terms of it taking a ton of your health with one hit. You can kind of get some kind of defensive measures by having another bone shield charge reduce the damage. So that's really nice. Otherwise, PvPers will most likely use either Rapid Decomposition or Soul Gorge. My guess is Soul Gorge, because dealing with something like Death and Decay on a 15-second cooldown, it's a static area where you kind of have to, you know, play with your targets inside the static area, and it's easy to get out of, and so therefore it kind of has its issues in PvP, and so that is why I can possibly see that not being taken, but it is an option to you. In the 58 tier, we have Ossuary, if I pronounce that correctly. While you have at least 5 Bone Shield charges, the cost of Death Strike is reduced by 5 runic power. Additionally, your maximum runic power is increased by 10. So, I will go ahead and demonstrate for you how easy it is to actually get, we'll go ahead and get our stacks up really quick. It takes no time at all. Almost got there. If I had gotten another proc or so off of abilities, I could have gotten it all the way up to 10, but we will use it one more time, and we're at 10 now, so now the Death Strike now only has a 40 runic power cost as opposed to what it did before, which means that with the 10 extra runic power, you actually are able to get 3 of these off consecutively, and I do not know why I'm not able to, it wasn't allowing me to use Death Strike there. That was very odd. So, there we go. It could have been that I really have no clue, actually, to be honest, why I couldn't use Death Strike there. I kept jumping up in the air and then not even landing anything. That was very odd. So, we'll go ahead and display this again just so we can see what it looks like. See if we can get, hopefully, a proc here. There we go. Okay, so we have Death Strike. We can use Death Strike on something else. And, oh, I'm all out of runic power. So, very quickly ran out of runic power there. But, you kind of get the idea of having your runic power, less runic power will allow you to have more Death Strikes, which is really nice to have. Do note that 5 isn't really that much, and so I don't see this being used as much because it's only 5. But as I said, it does give you the chance to get 3 consecutive Death Strikes off, so you can have a short period of time in which you have a pretty large bubble from your mastery that's able to mitigate damage as best possible. Let me double check right here so that you can see. I'm not quite sure how long your absorption shield lasts. I believe it was 10 seconds. That's what we determined in the last video. So you have 10 seconds. If you're able to get 3 consecutive Death Strikes off, that's a pretty powerful bubble that you have. If like maybe a boss phase comes up and you need to mitigate a lot of damage, you can do something like that. Blood Tap is here again, and it comes back. It used to be in the 60 tier, and now it is in the 58 tier. The old version was every 15 runic power you spend, you generate a blood charge, max 12 charges. Blood Tap consumes 5 blood charges to activate a randomly fully depleted rune as a death rune. Well, we all know how runes have kind of changed and how you basically don't have death runes or blood runes or anymore. So basically what this does is it generates a rune. And then every time a bone shield charge is consumed, it's reduced by 1 second. So there's a little deviation there in how blood tap works, but basically it's giving you back a rune, which was its original intent the way it was in the old talent tier. The last option here is anti-magic barrier. Your anti-magic shell also increases your maximum health by 25% for 10 seconds. So right now my health's at 2.3 million. I'll go ahead and use anti-magic shell, and now it's at 2.9 million. So huge health buff right there. If I want to, I can do vampiric and make it even higher. I'm at 4.2 million health. If you stack both of those together, that's a pretty big buff in your health pool. So pretty cool option there if you want to just kind of burst your health all the way up as high as possible for your blood DK. In the 60 tier, we have Mark of Blood. 30 runic power, places a mark of blood on an enemy target for 25 seconds. The enemy's damaging auto attacks will also heal the victim for 2% of their maximum health. If I could be wrong, but I do remember this being an ability for blood DKs way back when. This was a long time ago, but I do remember Mark of Blood. I believe it was in their original talent tree. So let's go ahead and get some runic power up so we can show this off real quick and see what it looks like. And so we'll go ahead and use Mark of Blood right now. You can see the marks above the target now, and it's got the debuff, and so now I can heal with it as well. So that's really cool that that's back. The next one here is Red Thirst. Spending runic power will decrease the remaining cooldown on vampiric blood by 2 seconds per 10 runic power. So you're going to be spending a lot of runic power anyways because of Death Strike, so this will end up being pretty good. 2 Death Strikes will be 90 runic power, which means you will get a full 18 seconds off of your vampiric blood. That's really powerful, which means that vampiric blood with a 1.5 minute cooldown is something that's more or less, with this ability, meant to be used consistently as opposed to a long cooldown. Your long cooldown for a Blood Death Knight is going to be pretty much dancing rune weapons. So that's an option that you can choose to kind of get that vampiric blood up as much as possible. I really don't see this being used in PvE that much, to be honest, because this is like an emergency situation, and if you're constantly running into emergency situations about every I would guess if you were doing your rotations correctly, you could probably get it down, vampiric blood's cooldown, average cooldown, down to about 40 seconds. If you're running into trouble every 40 seconds, you probably need better gear as a tank. So honestly, Red Thirst is something I see more for PvP. And Mark of Blood can definitely be something that's both for PvP and PvE, but definitely I don't see Red Thirst too much in PvE. The last option here is Tombstone. You consume all blood shield charges. For each charge consumed, you gain 3 runic power and absorb damage equal to 3% of your maximum health for 8 seconds. So we'll go ahead and set up Tombstone. We'll go ahead and build up my bone shield charges again. There's a lot dealing with bone shield charges in this game. We have 10 full charges. We got a nice proc there. And we're going to consume them here with Tombstone. And right there, it brings it all the way down to 0, and I'm absorbing, it looks like, 855,000 damage. So that's a lot you're able to absorb. It's not quite the amount you're able to absorb through your artifact weapon power. If you remember the artifact weapon Umbilicus Eternus, if I pronounce it correctly, after Vampiric Blood expires, you absorb damage equal 5 times the damage your blood plague dealt during Vampiric Blood. Just to give you an idea, that kind of makes, with that talent, Red Thirst could be used in PvE. And it honestly would be better than Tombstone, because Tombstone's consuming your bone shield charges for basically a burst heal. But if you time it right, you can also kind of do that with Red Thirst and Vampiric Blood. So, in all honesty, I may have to take back what I said about Red Thirst not being used in a PvE situation, because I was not considering the artifact weapon talent that allows you to get that massive bubble healing. As you will see right here, I will put this on 6 different targets real quick, and we will do the shield off of it, and you will see just how much damage I'm able to get off of this with Vampiric Blood, or how much healing I'm able to get off of this. So right now it's storing all of the damage that I'm dealing right now from those diseases, and then now I have a shield that is worth 2.8 million to absorb damage. If you can time things with Vampiric Blood, it's going to be way stronger. And then Red Thirst becomes extremely useful. But if not, and this is an AoE situation only, if not, then Tombstone is more of your big burst, I need a big shield right now type of moment ability. Otherwise, PvP, PvE, I think all of these options are going to be kind of in play. Red Thirst now in play now that I kind of remembered the artifact weapon talent. But it's kind of an interesting tier, actually, to be honest, and what you can do for defensive abilities. And it kind of is, it's one of these tiers that I really like, where you can be like, okay, I want to choose this one because it fits my playstyle. And I think that's what's going to be the case in the 60 tier. In the 75 tier, we have Tightening Grasp. Reduces the cooldown of Gorfiend's Grasp by 60 seconds, and your Death and Decay also reduces the movement speed of enemies within its radius by 70%. So this is a PvP talent, really. 70% reduction, I've said this many times throughout several of these videos, it's huge, and when you're able to do 70% reduction, it's just a big deal. And having that on Death and Decay in such a large radius, I think will be absolutely pivotal in PvP. Also, remember, Gorfiend's Grasp was increased from a 1-minute cooldown to a 3-minute cooldown, so having it down to a 2-minute cooldown will help out a lot in PvP. But realistically, this is a PvP only talent. I just don't see this being used for PvE. Tremble Before Me. Enemies damaged by your Death and Decay have a chance to cower in place for 3 seconds, but cannot suffer from this effect more than once per 10 seconds. Damage may cancel the effect. So this is something that I really see as, it could be used in PvP, but it's something I can probably see more in PvE. You set your, basically, your Death and Decay down to gain threat, and then you can also mitigate a lot of damage by causing a lot of them to tremble in fear. However, if it's a large AoE pack, there's going to be a lot of AoE going out anyways from your enemies, and so that'll interrupt the cower in fear effect. So, in all honesty, I'm not a big fan of this option, but I think in terms of PvE, this is better than Tightening Grip. The last option here is March of the Damned. Wraith Walk lasts 50% longer and breaks stun, snare, and root effects when cast. This is easily, obviously, a PvP talent. It's not something that's going to be taken in PvE, which basically means that Tremble Before Me is going to be your only option in PvE. There are a couple times in which I've encountered this in several talent trees. Entire tiers that really probably should be relegated to the PvP talent tree, but instead are in the PvE talent tree. So PvE has an option here in Tremble Before Me. It's just not very appealing. They may find a liking to having Gorfiend's Grasp on a 2-minute cooldown instead of a 3-minute cooldown, but overall, I don't think that's really that important to your Blood DK tank in PvE. So I think Tremble Before Me will probably be the option, and then PvPers will decide basically Wraith Walk or March of the Damned versus Tightening Grasp, and I think it'll depend on the size of PvP. If it's more World PvP, Mass World PvP, probably more Tightening Grasp. If it is instead more Arena or less players, etc., March of the Damned will be more useful in that type of things. It also depends on organized versus unorganized, so it'll be up to them to decide. In the 90 tier, we have Will of the Necropolis, or Necropolis. I believe it's pronounced Necropolis. Damage taken below 35% health is reduced by 20%, so straight passive there. Really boring if you ask me, but it's just a straight passive there. When you drop below 35% health, your damage is reduced by 20%. It's going to be really strong in PvP, having that damage reduction. You have Rune Tap, good old Rune Tap. Basically, Rune Tap was taken out of your baseline abilities, and now it is a talent. Consume a rune to reduce all damage taken by 25% for 3 seconds. Costs 1 rune, 25-second recharge. Another defensive option there. To be honest, I don't really like this because it doesn't play into the theme and the playstyle of a Blood Death Knight. I'd rather use the tools at hand rather than grabbing into something like this as just flat damage reduction from a rune. Last option here is Foul Bulwark. Each charge of Bone Shield increases your maximum health by 2%. This is something that I would like more. However, it all kind of depends on your playstyle, your group makeup, you know, several factors. I think in PvP, Will of the Necropolis will probably be the option. Probably better than Bone Shield. But Rune Tap could also be an option. You see a lot of bursts coming, you can use Rune Tap. So it's going to be, you're going to have at least 2 options in PvP, and maybe all 3 will be open in PvE. I'm not an expert on Blood DK tanking. I'm not going to try to be an expert on Blood DK tanking. But you have 3, it's kind of like the 60 tier in which you have an interesting 3 options, and it plays to your playstyle. You have a choice in your playstyle, which is really cool. That's when you know a talent tree is working, and that was the whole point of them switching to this just 3-tiered talent tree, just having 3 options per tier, was basically, I want my playstyle to be like this, so I'll choose this. And so that's great that that's coming out in this basically this iteration of the Blood talent tree. In the level 100 tier, we have a Bone Storm, which is a 1-minute cooldown. A whirl of bone and gore batters nearby enemies for 1 second. Every 1 second, dealing 47,000 shadow damage every 1 second, and healing you for 1% of your maximum health every time it deals damage. Lasts 1 second per 10 runic power spent. So, let's test this out here. Let's go ahead and build up my runic power. We'll put down Death and Decay. We'll begin building up through Heart Strike. And then once this is all up to the top, we will attempt Bone Storm just to see what it looks like and what it can do. So I believe we are above 100, so now it is the time. We use Bone Storm, and there you go, you can see that. That's a really cool visual. And then you can see there, it just continues to deal damage. At the same time, it's continuing to tick heal me for 23,000 per tick. So that's really nice option for Death Knights to have, especially in an AoE setting. That's going to be a lot of damage and at the same time a lot of healing. So this is definitely an option in an AoE setting, whereas in a single target setting you're probably going to be wanting to stick more with your Death Strikes instead. We have a Blood, well, let's get to that in a second because that's a 2-minute cooldown. We have Purgatory. This functions just as it does on live. Basically, Blizzard felt this was too strong to have it all the way down at the 57 tier, so they brought it all the way up to level 100 tier, and it's basically the same as it was before. Nothing has changed there. It's still the same. So it'll save you, but you got to make sure that you heal yourself up properly, or else you will die eventually afterwards. So same old, same old. We have a Blood Mirror here. It's a 2-minute cooldown. Afflict an enemy with Blood Mirror for 10 seconds. While active, 20% of damage dealt to you is redirected to the target. So this is more of the PvP option. While I see Purgatory and Bone Storm being more PvE options, this is something that I really see for PvP. This is kind of like a lesser version of Touch of Karma for monks. In fact, it feels like a complete rip-off of it. But basically, you're just reflecting damage back at the attacker. Let's see if it's as noticeable as Touch of Karma. We'll go ahead and you have to be in melee range for it to happen. So, yeah, it's pretty obvious that it's on you when it happens. However, it's not quite as noticeable as having a big target over your head that Touch of Karma does, because that alerts all your allies that, like, hey, don't attack this person. But if you pop Blood Mirror and you stay real close to someone, you can trick a lot of your enemies into killing their own teammate if you're able to stay alive and then they do enough damage to you. So definitely it's better in terms of hiding that it's actually on the target, but if they figure it out, like, people will just back off you like they do with Touch of Karma, wait for it to come off, and then they'll go from there. But definitely in this tier, this is really the only PvP option, whereas PvE options easily will be Purgatory and Bone Storm. I would expect any AoE fight, probably Bone Storm, but then Purgatory will easily be in any single target fight, and possibly maybe some multiple in some AoE fights if they feel like they need this more than Bone Storm. So, With that, that's everything for the PvE talents for Blood Death Knight. Let's take a look at the Honor talents coming to a Blood Death Knight in World of Warcraft Legion. Now, Honor works a little bit differently in World of Warcraft Legion. This is the last time going through this, thankfully. You'll start at a level 1, you'll work your way all the way up to level 50 like you do in Call of Duty. And then when you reach level 50, you'll be able to prestige. As you work your way up from level 1 all the way to level 50, you'll begin gaining talents. You'll start with Gladiator's Medallion at 1. By 10, you'll have Blood for Blood. And at 13, you'll start with Adaptation and work down the second row. And then rinse and repeat for the third row. And then you'll get Death Chain at level 46. And then once you reach 50, you'll be able to prestige and start all the way back with just your Gladiator's Medallion. And you'll get like a pet, a mount, a vanity item, etc. Something to keep that shows how cool you are. And you can basically make that decision. Do I want that cool little pet or that mount? Or do I want to just say, I'm done leveling talents and go from there? So, that is how Honor works. In the first tier, this all deals about your Honorable Medallion. Your Honorable Medallion is the first medallion you will get when you enter a BG. You just have to enter a BG to get it. And it's basically a 3-minute heirloom trinket. That 3-minute heirloom trinket can be turned into a 2-minute trinket, as you all know and use on live, with Gladiator's Medallion, your first talent here. The second option is Adaptation, which is all loss of control effects with a duration of 5 seconds or more will activate your Honorable Medallion spell, but only cause it to incur a 60-second cooldown. So this is a different option. It doesn't replace your Honorable Medallion, so you still have that on a 3-minute cooldown, but at the same time, you have a 60-second cooldown on this Adaptation, which basically automatically triggers your Honorable Medallion of sorts. Now you can use an Honorable Medallion, however the Honorable Medallion will cause Adaptation to go on a 3-minute cooldown, so you have to be careful of that. The third option here is Relentless, which will replace your Honorable Medallion, and the duration of incoming crowd control effects is reduced by 25%. So this is something that I see more tanks taking. Tanks, if they're able to withstand some damage. Blood tanks is definitely one that I can see taking this. Put up a bunch of shields on yourself, and then, you know, you're able to mitigate a lot of damage because you have so many shields on yourself all the time. And do note that Gladiator's Medallion does replace your Honorable Medallion. I don't think I've ever had to say this before in other videos, but I'm making a point here. You can't have a 3-minute trinket and a 2-minute trinket. You only get one or the other. You don't get both. So, 3 interesting options there. In this next tier, we have the tanking tier. We have Relentless Assault. Being attacked increases your damage by 3%, lasts for 5 seconds, stacks up to 5 times. I really see nobody taking this just because the others are just way too good. We have Murderous Intent. Your Dart Command, which is your taunt, has a reduced range but causes enemy player to be intimidated, causing their damage taken to be increased by, oh my gosh, increasing their damage taken by 20% for 6 seconds. Your melee attacks refresh the duration of the intimidated. So, in organized PvP, this is going to be the option taken without question. It's just way too strong. Basically, with this, you are able to get, you're basically to be a target caller as a tank and say, hey, everyone focuses one down. That's what you're going to be able to do with this, because 20% increased damage for that target is just insane, and so I can see people easily taking this every single time, and I wouldn't be surprised if this is nerfed in some way, shape, or form, because it's just, I think it's too powerful. In non-organized PvP, I can easily see Soften Blows being the option. Any non-periodic attack that deals damage less than 10% of your maximum health is reduced by 20%. Most spells and abilities will deal less than 10% of your maximum health as a tank. So that basically means you're going to get a flat 20% reduction like at all times. You have shields, you have something like your Bone Shield, which comes off of Morrowind. Basically that reduces your damage already, so you're going to have a lot of abilities up already that reduce your damage, and then if it keeps it below that 10% threshold, then it will be reduced by another 20%, which makes it pretty strong. You'll still have to deal with dot classes, but overall this is pretty strong. And unless you're in organized PvP, I think this is a really strong option. In the third tier, we have Cadaverous Pallor. You have a 20% chance when struck by a magical spell for it to be completely absorbed and converted into a disease on yourself, dealing nature damage over time. So it's kind of like a Death Knight's stagger, so to say. It's their own personal stagger, just for magical spells. It's an option here. However, it competes with a very popular option that I like, which is Dark Simulacrum, which places a Dark Ward. It's the same as it has been for Death Knights. You're able to replicate their spell and do it on. It's just a fun ability that I like having. So it's an option here in the PvP talent tree. And then also Anti-Magic Zone, which was a talent before in your regular talent tree, is now here in this in your PvP talent tree. Places an Anti-Magic Zone for 10 seconds that reduces spell damage taken by party array members by 60%. 2-minute cooldown. The old version was a 2-minute cooldown, but it didn't negate nearly as much damage. This does 60%, whereas the old version did only 20%, so it is much stronger, and I do believe that it lasts longer. The old one lasts for 3 seconds, this one lasts for 10 seconds, so this can be very strong. Also notice, it's a 30-yard range. I believe that's how the old one worked, but this is going to be a pretty strong option for you to have as a blood DK. So unless you want to take the fun ability, honestly, I would probably choose Anti-Magic Zone if I wasn't going to already take the fun ability of Dark Simulacrum. With that, we have the 4th tier. We have Decomposing Aura. All enemies within 10 yards slowly decay, losing 3% of their maximum health every 2 seconds. Stacks up to 5 times, lasts for 5 seconds. So, it's a little confusing how long, what the stacking means, because it says stacks up to 5 times. So, if players were to lose 15% of their maximum health every 2 seconds, because it stacked up to 5 times, that would be absurd. I believe what the stacking means is that it will stack in duration up to 5 times, so you'll have up to 10 seconds of losing 3% of their maximum health every 2 seconds, and that will give you more time to get back in range with them if you need to get back in range with them. So that is how I believe the stacking works. I have not tested this in PvP, but definitely 15% of your maximum health every 2 seconds would be absolutely absurd. And sorry, it lasts for 5 seconds, so stacking up to 5 times would mean it would last up to 25 seconds as opposed to not 10 seconds. So that is how I am understanding this ability to work. With Heartstop Aura, we decrease the cooldown on the recovery rate of all abilities by 30% to all enemies within 10 yards. Basically, the cool thing about this tier is you're going to be able to look at the enemy team and you're going to be like, okay, they've got a lot of ability-based heroes. Let's go ahead and grab Heartstop Aura. And so there you can do, you can make a real big difference for your team by choosing something like this. Otherwise, you can go to something else. A lot of melee, you can be like, okay, we'll go with Decomposing Aura. Or you can go with this last one, which is Necrotic Aura, which is all enemies within 10 yards take 8% increased magic damage, so you can have kind of a damage buff. Think of Necrotic Aura combined with Murderous Intent. How much damage you'll be able to do. It's pretty powerful. So if you have a lot of magical damage on your team, basically you can say, okay, well, let's take Necrotic Aura instead because of our group makeup. So you have 3 interesting options here. And I apologize for not being able to show this inside the actual battleground. The battleground is a really uncontrolled environment, and it's difficult to narrate through that with all the stuff going on and to show off abilities, so that is why I'm not doing this in a battleground. It also takes a while to actually get into battleground, and to be honest, battlegrounds on the beta realms are just slaughter fests back and forth. You're either on the winning team or the losing team, and you can either be camped or not camped. That's kind of how battlegrounds are working, so I wouldn't be able to show very well what is available to a Blood Death Knight. In the 5th tier, we have Unholy Command. Your Death Grip has 2 charges. So Death Grip, remember, is already reduced to 15 seconds. So having 2 Death Grips, 7.5 second cooldown on your Death Grip is pretty awesome. It's going to be really hard for players to even come near you. I love it. Oh my gosh, this guy just died here from attacking the tanking dummy. So I think having 2 charges of Death Grip is really strong, especially since Heart Strike is your really only way of slowing a target, unless of course you take that amazing option with Death and Decay where you slow them by 70%, which will be pretty powerful. I think that's pretty strong, being able to chuck out a Death and Decay from range, ensnaring an entire team in like a rated battleground. I think that'll end up being powerful. The second option here is Walking Dead. Your Death Grip causes the target to be unable to move faster than normal movement speed for 8 seconds. So if someone's trying to escape, let's say a hunter pops his aspect to the cheetah and he's got 900% movement speed, death grip, and then they can't, like, they burn their 3-minute cooldown. That's pretty strong. So this could be something that could be used as well. Maybe if you feel like you have enough snares with Death and Decay, and with your Heart Strike, you can go for this instead. The last option is Strangulate. Shadowy Tendrils constrict an enemy's throat, silencing them for 5 seconds. You guys know how Strangulate works. 1 minute full cooldown though, so just pay attention to that. In the 6th tier, we have Blood for Blood. Heart Strike damage increased by 50%, but costs 10% of your total health. So you're getting a lot more damage from Heart Strike, but at the same time you're trading off your health for it. I think 10% of your health is kind of costly for a Blood Death Knight. I mean, I know you have a lot of health pool, but since it's on a percentage basis, it can start to hurt. So, not a big fan of this, but it is an option if you want to really burst out some damage really quickly. This is what you can do. I mean, your main damage opportunities are going to be Morrowind with 174,000, but really consecutive Heart Strikes will likely be your best option in terms of damage, switching between Heart Strikes and Death Strikes. So this could be for more burst damage if you want it. Second option here is Blight. Your Death and Decay now instead conjures a damage area under up to 3 nearest enemies within 40 yards. So, instead of your Death and Decay, it used to, what it would do is it would, you know, it's a targetable. It's a targetable icon, you can launch it down. This basically now, you activate your Death and Decay, and it now conjures a damage area under the 3 nearest enemies within 40 yards. Now, I'm not sure as to the radius of this. I do not know how large this radius is. However, I very much doubt that it's the same radius as it is now. My assumption is that it'll be smaller, but it will conjure up underneath 3 of them, and then if you have something like the snare, it really slows down the enemy team. So that is an option to you. It's within 40 yards, so I'm assuming you're able to conjure it up underneath a target of your choice, and then the other 2 will just be snared, or it could be all 3 randomly snared. I honestly don't know about that. I'm sorry. I'd have to go into a battleground to check that out, but it is an interesting change to how you could play a Blood Death Knight in PvP. With that, we have the last option. It's called Death Chain. Chains 3 enemies together, dealing 37,000 shadow damage and causing 25% of all damage taken to also be received by others in the chain. So, you can chain basically the weaklings together. It's a 15-second cooldown, and then focus fire on one, and allow it to do even more like spread AoE damage, so that targets healers. This will be effective against, like, you can look at your battleground screen and be like, okay, we've got a lot of single target healers that are going to be in this battleground, and be like, okay, I'm going Death Chain, because that's going to put them under a lot of stress. If you see a Resto Druid or a Mistweaver Monk on the other side, don't bother with this, because honestly, they're going to laugh it off and just heal normally. Their AoE healing potential is enough to just mitigate all of this. However, if you're talking about like a Holy Paladin, for instance, then you got something there. And Death Chain can be really powerful. So, interesting choices here. I'm sorry, I really don't understand how Blight works or functions. I wish I did. I wish I was able to actually test the... I wish I was actually able to test PvP talents wherever I wanted, but I cannot. But that is everything for a Blood Death Knight in World of Warcraft Legion. This is the final episode of this class overview series. I may be doing more Legion videos just so you can kind of see what's coming for us when Legion actually launches. But in terms of actually giving out all the information on all class changes, this is the very end. Thank you if you've been watching a lot of these videos. I know a lot of them have been very long. It's funny looking back at my very first videos. They were almost 10 to 20 minutes shorter than my other videos, because I had just started up doing these videos again from the last time, which was Warlords of Draenor, and it took a while to get comfortable into getting the groove of in the groove of doing things and so forth. So I thank you guys for sticking with me. This is the final video. There may be some more Legion videos, but in terms of class overviews, this is it. Thank you guys for being here. This is Arcarus. We are at Arcarus. This is Tearless, and I hope to see you guys out there in World of Warcraft Legion. Otherwise, I will see you guys later. Tearless out.